that constantly tells you to do more, be more, achieve more? What if the answer is to do nothing at all? This might sound counterintuitive, even dangerous to a society obsessed with progress, but one of the most influential psychological thinkers of the 20th century, Carl Jung, taught us that true transformation doesn't come from constant striving. It comes from turning inward. Jung's ideas, shadow integration, individuation, and surrender to the unconscious, have become foundational in modern psychology, especially in the United States, where he remains ranked among the top 5 most cited psychological theorists in clinical and depth psychology. He believed that wholeness isn't something we create, it's something we uncover when we stop resisting and begin listening to the deeper forces at play within us. This isn't laziness, it's the beginning of alignment with what is real. So if you're ready to experience the kind of peace and clarity that effort alone could never bring, then do nothing after this and just watch what falls into place. We are born into a world that worships action. From the moment we take our first steps, we are conditioned to believe that our worth lies in how much we achieve, how hard we strive, how much we control. We are taught that to do nothing is to waste time, to fall behind, to become irrelevant. But I tell you now, this belief is the very root of your suffering. The more you try to control, the more life slips through your fingers like sand. The more you cling, the more you push away the very thing you seek. The ego, in its desperate hunger to feel powerful, to feel secure, becomes addicted to movement. It cannot bear stillness, because in stillness, the illusion of control dies. You believe that by doing more, fixing more, planning more, you can keep chaos at bay. But what you do not realize is that this very effort, this incessant doing, creates the chaos you fear. You become trapped in a cycle of reaction, responding not from presence, but from fear. You scramble to hold things together, to make things happen, to prevent them from falling apart. But what if the falling apart is exactly what must happen? What if your interference is not a rescue, but a resistance to the greater order that is already trying to emerge? When you do nothing, not in apathy, not in avoidance, but in conscious stillness, you create a space for life to show you its deeper intelligence. This is not laziness. This is surrender. It is the radical decision to stop forcing, to stop manipulating outcomes, to stop imposing your will upon the world as if you alone know what should be. Because the truth is, you don't. And that is not a weakness, it is a relief. You do not have to carry the unbearable burden of knowing the way. Life knows the way, but it cannot guide you as long as you insist on steering the wheel. The ego does not want to hear this. The ego is terrified of surrender, because surrender feels like death. And in a way, it is. It is the death of the false self, the self that must always be in control, the self that believes it must fight to survive. But beneath that illusion is another self, a deeper self, a self that does not struggle because it does not fear life. It trusts the unfolding. It does not measure its value by what it accomplishes, but by what it is. And it is from this place, this deep, abiding self, that peace begins to return. You may feel anxious when you first stop doing. The silence may feel unbearable. The mind will scream that you are wasting time, that you are losing ground, that you must do something, anything to regain control. But this panic is only the ego unraveling. Let it unravel. Let it burn in the fire of your stillness. For when the smoke clears, what remains is something astonishing. You are still here. You did not die. The world did not collapse. In fact, something begins to happen. Quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. Life begins to move without your interference. The pieces you were scrambling to hold together begin to settle into place. Not because you forced them, but because you allowed them. because you finally stepped aside and let the natural order of things restore itself. You see, control is a substitute for trust, and trust is born only in the absence of control. You cannot trust life if you are always trying to command it, and you cannot be guided if you refuse to be still. There is an intelligence in your psyche, in the fabric of reality itself, that seeks to bring you into wholeness, but it cannot do so while you are trying to manipulate it into giving you what you think you need. Sometimes, what you want is the very thing keeping you from what your soul truly needs. And until you stop, until you quiet the noise of your own mind, you cannot hear the whisper of what wants to emerge from within you. Doing nothing is not a rejection of responsibility. It is an invitation into deeper responsibility. A responsibility not to your fear, but to your truth. It is the conscious decision to stop participating in your own fragmentation, to stop feeding the lie that you must strive endlessly to earn love, to earn peace, to earn rest. You do not need to earn what you already are. And the moment you stop running, you begin to remember that. So now I say to you, not as a command but as a gesture of compassion, do nothing. Stop grasping, stop planning, stop fighting. Let the need to fix your life fall away, even if just for a moment. And in that moment you will see that life does not need your interference to align. It needs your stillness, your openness, your presence. And if you can hold that space, if you can bear the discomfort of not knowing, not doing, not controlling, then something extraordinary begins to unfold. Everything starts to fall into place, not because you made it happen, but because you finally allowed it to. When you are wounded, truly wounded, not on the surface but in the depths of your being, your first instinct is to resist the pain. You try to fix it. You try to understand it, to rationalize it, to make it go away. You distract yourself, keep yourself busy, surround yourself with noise and people and plans. You chase healing like it is another goal to accomplish, another task to complete. But in doing so, you block the very healing you are trying to find, because the psyche does not respond to pressure. It does not bloom in the light of effort. It opens in the quiet. It restores itself in stillness. You may believe that the harder you work on yourself, the faster you will be free of your suffering. But the truth is that suffering, when approached like a problem to solve, only deepens. The psyche is not a machine. It is a living mystery. It does not need you to fix it. It needs you to listen to it. It does not ask for more effort. It asks for your presence. And presence cannot emerge while you are constantly doing. It can only arise when you stop and surrender to the moment as it is, without trying to alter it. We have been taught that silence is empty, that stillness is wasted time. But it is in stillness that the most profound transformations begin. Not because you are making something happen, but because you are finally getting out of the way. You are ceasing the war within yourself. You are no longer running, no longer reacting. You are simply allowing. And in this allowing, something ancient begins to move in you. Something that was always there, waiting for you to stop long enough to feel it. What is broken in you does not need to be fixed. It needs to be seen, fully, without judgment, without shame. And this seeing can only happen in the absence of doing. You cannot listen to your pain if you are always trying to silence it. You cannot understand your fear if you are always trying to push it away. You cannot meet your grief if you are constantly looking for a way to escape it. True healing begins when you sit with what is, not with the intention of changing it, but with the courage to feel it as it is. This is not weakness. This is the greatest strength, to face yourself without distraction, to sit in your own darkness without a flashlight, without a map, without a plan, to let the chaos within you reveal its own meaning in its own time. The psyche has an organic intelligence. It knows how to find balance. It knows how to heal, just as the body does. But you must give it space. You must stop flooding it with your anxiety, your impatience, your fear-driven urgency. You must create room for the deeper wisdom to rise. When you enter stillness, you do not retreat from life, you return to it. You come home to yourself. The outer world may keep moving, may keep shouting for your attention, but something in you becomes rooted, grounded, steady. You begin to notice what you've been avoiding. You begin to feel what you've been numbing. And though this may be uncomfortable, perhaps even terrifying, it is through this discomfort that the old wounds surface, and once they surface, they can be touched with compassion. You do not have to fix your wounds. You only have to hold them. You only have to stop running from them. You only have to stop trying to be free of them. Paradoxically, it is in your willingness to be with your wounds that freedom begins to arise. Not because the pain disappears, but because it no longer controls you. You are no longer a slave to your fear of it. You have made space for it. You have become larger than it. In this space of non-doing, the unconscious begins to speak. Images, memories, sensations rise, not as threats, but as messengers. They come to show you what has been buried. They come to reveal the parts of you that have been denied. If you try to interpret them too quickly, you distort their meaning. But if you simply allow them to be, if you receive them with open attention, they begin to integrate themselves into your consciousness. You begin to feel whole again, not because the past is erased, but because it is finally embraced. There is a rhythm to healing that cannot be rushed. It unfolds like a flower, petal by petal, in silence and in time. And if you try to pull the petals open, you only destroy what was meant to blossom. So you must learn to trust the stillness, to trust that your not doing is not failure, but participation in a deeper process, a process that has been waiting for you to stop long enough to feel it. So stop, just stop. Let the inner noise subside, let the effort dissolve, let the pain speak, let your soul come forward in the absence of striving. Because when you do nothing, when you allow yourself to simply be, the psyche begins to heal not because you command it, but because you finally allow it to do what it was always capable of doing. There are moments in your life when something strange happens, something small, perhaps even subtle. You think of a person and they call. You're lost in uncertainty, and a sentence in a book or a stranger's passing comment seems to speak directly to the question burning in your heart. You make a choice without knowing why, and later realize it led you exactly where you needed to be. You call these things coincidences. You laugh them off or forget them. But they are not accidents. They are signs that something deeper is at work. Something that moves beneath the surface of your conscious mind. Something that organizes life not through force, but through resonance. These moments are not created by doing more. They arrive when you do less. You have been taught to believe that life is mechanical, that it responds only to action, calculation, and control, and so you plan every step, you push for outcomes, you manipulate circumstances to create the future you think you should have. But life is not a machine, it is a mystery, and mysteries do not reveal themselves to those who demand. They reveal themselves to those who become still. There is an intelligence far beyond the rational mind, a living wisdom that connects your inner world with the outer events of your life. It does not respond to your effort, it responds to your alignment. What you call synchronicity is the reflection of an inner order expressing itself outwardly. It is the psyche speaking to you through events, through symbols, through experiences that seem to arrive at precisely the right moment. But this does not happen when you are caught in anxiety, striving, and control. It happens when you relax into presence, when you stop trying to force life and begin to listen to it instead. And it is in those moments, when you are no longer resisting, no longer clinging, that life begins to move toward you with its strange and beautiful precision. You see, there is a kind of rhythm to existence, a hidden pattern that weaves itself through time and space. And you are not separate from it. You are a thread in that pattern. But when you are consumed by the need to make things happen, to solve everything, to chase certainty, you become entangled. You lose the rhythm. You move out of harmony with yourself, and the world reflects that discord. You feel blocked, confused, lost. Not because life is against you, but because you have stepped out of the current. You are trying to swim upstream when all that's required is to float. Synchronicity is not magic. It is not luck. It is the result of your inner state aligning with a deeper reality. It is what happens when you stop fighting with life and allow it to speak through the language of symbols and timing. But in order for this to happen, you must stop imposing your timeline, your agenda, your insistence on knowing. You must enter the unknown willingly. You must let go of the need to figure it all out. And when you do, when you surrender your certainty, something unexpected happens. Life begins to answer you. It will not always come in grand gestures. Often it arrives in the smallest of things. A song, a sentence, a sudden insight. And yet, these moments, if you are paying attention, feel charged with meaning. They feel alive. They feel as though the universe is whispering directly to you. That is not your imagination. That is not your wishful thinking. That is the natural outcome of becoming receptive, of ceasing to chase and beginning to allow. The psyche speaks in symbols, and life becomes symbolic only when you are quiet enough to perceive it. If you find yourself asking for a sign but rushing to find it, if you are constantly seeking clarity but unwilling to pause, then you are chasing something that cannot be chased. You are closing the very door through which the answer would come. You must make space for the unknown to speak, and that space is created not through effort, but through stillness, through presence, through the conscious choice to stop doing and begin listening. When you stop interfering, life begins to mirror your inner wholeness. The people, opportunities, and insights that come your way are not random. They are drawn to the state of being you embody. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And when what you are is open, honest, surrendered, and still, then the world around you begins to respond in kind. Paths open, blocks dissolve. The right words come at the right time, not because you chased them, but because you became the kind of person to whom they naturally come. This is the mystery of synchronicity. It cannot be summoned, only received. And to receive it, you must become quiet. You must stop doing what you always do and allow something new to arise. This is not passivity. It is profound trust. It is the willingness to step back and allow the deeper order of life to move through you. And once you do, you will begin to realize that you were never separate. You were simply too loud to hear the subtle music that was always playing. So be still, be open, do nothing, and watch what begins to unfold. There is a part of you that you do not wish to see, a voice inside you that you have tried to silence, a face you have buried beneath masks of politeness, productivity, and perfection. You have called it shameful, selfish, angry, unworthy. You have done everything you can to disown it, to distance yourself from it. And yet, no matter how far you run, it follows. This part of you is your shadow, and what you must understand is this. The more you try to outrun your shadow, the more power it has over you. The more you strive to suppress it, the more it sabotages your life from the places you refuse to look. You see, when you are constantly doing, constantly pushing, fixing, striving, you are not only running from life, you are running from yourself. The busyness, the control, the endless pursuit of progress, they are not signs of strength. They are often signs of fear. You are afraid of what will surface in the silence. You are afraid of what you might feel when the noise fades, and you are right to be afraid, because in that stillness, the shadow begins to emerge. It rises from the depths, uninvited but necessary. It brings with it all that has been rejected: old wounds, forgotten grief, suppressed anger, hidden desire. But here is the truth you may not yet be ready to hear. This shadow is not your enemy. It is your unlived life. It holds the parts of your soul you were told to hide. It contains the energy, the wisdom, the power that you had to split off from in order to survive. And now it returns. Not to punish you, but to be reconciled, to be seen, to be heard. But this will not happen while you are caught in the frenzy of doing. The shadow cannot reach you through noise. It waits in the silence. It waits for you to stop, and you do nothing, not out of despair but out of presence. You create the conditions in which the shadow can rise without fear. You are no longer judging it, no longer running from it. You are witnessing it. And in this act of pure witnessing, something begins to shift. The shadow no longer needs to attack from the dark. It no longer needs to disrupt your life through projection, through conflict, through crisis. It has been acknowledged, and acknowledgement is the first act of healing. You have seen how the shadow behaves when left unexamined. It turns inward and makes you your own enemy. It finds its way into your relationships, your fears, your self-sabotage. It whispers doubts in your ear, drives compulsions in your behavior, poisons your dreams with fear, not because it is evil, but because it is trying to be seen. When ignored, it becomes distorted. But when you meet it consciously, in stillness and openness, it begins to soften. It becomes less a demon and more a wounded child. It shows you not only your pain, but also your potential. Doing nothing is not the absence of action. It is the invitation for truth to rise. And the shadow is part of that truth. The truth that you are not only light, not only kindness and clarity and control, but also chaos, confusion, longing and rage. These elements are not failures. They are part of the totality of the human psyche. And it is only in making room for all of them that you become whole. Do you know what happens when you finally stop resisting your shadow? It stops needing to scream. It stops hijacking your life to get your attention. It becomes a guide. Yes, a guide. For the shadow, once integrated, holds the energy that you have been missing. Your creativity, your vitality, your intuition. These live not in your polished persona, but in the parts of you that you locked away. And when you invite those parts back in, your inner world becomes more unified. Your choices become clearer. You begin to act from authenticity, not from fear. You do not need to control the shadow. You cannot defeat it. You can only recognize it and welcome it home. This is what happens when you dare to stop. When you no longer keep yourself too busy to feel. When you no longer hide behind your performance. When you allow yourself to just be with all of it, the mess, the contradictions, the discomfort. In this space of surrender, the shadow finds its place. It no longer needs to rule from below. It becomes a partner in your transformation. You may think that to face your darkness will consume you, but the truth is that avoiding it is what keeps you enslaved. The moment you stop resisting, you realize that the darkness is not the end. It is the passage, the gateway to depth, to wholeness, to peace. It is not an obstacle in your path. It is your path. And if you have the courage to walk it, without flinching, without running, without trying to fix it, then everything that once felt like a threat begins to become part of your strength. So do nothing and let the shadow come. Let it speak. Let it cry, let it rage, and then listen, not to judge, not to solve, but simply to understand. For in that understanding, you will find the parts of yourself you thought were lost forever. There is a kind of wisdom that cannot be found in books, in advice, or even in experience. It can only be revealed in the silence that follows surrender. Yet, many people never reach this silence, not because they lack the capacity for it, but because they are constantly fighting their own nature. They spend their lives swimming upstream, resisting what is, convinced that struggle is a virtue and effort is the only path to progress. But there comes a moment, often born out of exhaustion, despair, or quiet clarity, when the psyche begins to whisper, "What if you stopped resisting? What if you let go?" You have been conditioned to believe that letting go means giving up, that surrender is weakness, but this is a misunderstanding rooted in fear. To surrender does not mean to collapse into passivity. It means to stop opposing life, to stop imposing your will on every outcome, on every feeling, on every stage of your evolution. It means allowing what wants to happen, not because you have no power, but because you begin to trust that a deeper intelligence is at work, one that does not originate from your ego, but from your essence. This intelligence does not shout. It waits. It does not rush. It unfolds. But you cannot hear it when your mind is filled with noise, with plans, with endless interpretations of what should be. You cannot sense it while you are entangled in resistance. Resistance is a wall you build between yourself and your own becoming. And the irony is that the very pain you are trying to avoid by resisting is the same pain that holds the key to your freedom, if you would only feel it fully and then let it pass. When you do nothing, not out of apathy but out of presence, you begin to notice that much of what you thought you had to control was never truly yours to manage in the first place. The world moves, breathes, and transforms without your constant intervention. The seasons turn, the body heals. The soul, if left undisturbed, knows how to realign itself. But we have forgotten this. We think we must make everything happen. We try to push a river that is already flowing, and in doing so, we exhaust ourselves and muddy the waters. Surrender is not about giving up your path. It is about releasing your grip on how that path should look. It is about trusting that what is meant for you will not require force. It will arise in its time, through its natural unfolding. And what is not meant for you will fall away no matter how tightly you cling. This is not fatalism, it is deep participation with life. It is cooperation with the mystery, rather than domination of it. When you finally stop resisting, you enter a space that is unfamiliar at first. You may feel naked without your armor, vulnerable without your plans, but in that space, something begins to awaken. A quiet guidance that has been waiting beneath the surface of all your striving. It does not come through logic. It comes through inner resonance. You begin to feel, rather than analyze, your way forward. You begin to sense what is aligned and what is not, without needing to explain it to anyone, even yourself. This is the guidance of the soul. It does not argue, it does not insist, it simply knows. But for you to receive its direction, you must be still enough to hear it. You must be brave enough to let go of all the noise, all the urgency, all the imagined control. When you surrender, you no longer block the natural current of your life. You become like a leaf carried by the stream, not powerless, but surrendered to the movement of something greater. And in that surrender, everything begins to organize itself around your true nature. What falls away is what no longer serves. What stays is what is meant to deepen. What arrives is what is in resonance with your soul's unfolding. And you do not need to chase it. You do not need to force it. You only need to be present enough, not to interfere. This is the paradox. By doing nothing, the most meaningful things begin to happen, not because you made them happen, but because you finally stopped blocking their arrival. This does not mean you become passive. On the contrary, once you are aligned, your actions become more powerful, more precise, more true. You act not from fear, but from clarity, not from desperation, but from inner knowing. But first, you must pass through the fire of surrender. You must let go of the illusions that have defined you. You must accept that you do not know, and that not knowing is not a problem, but a sacred doorway to everything real. So when life begins to unravel, when your plans fall apart, when nothing makes sense, do not rush to fix it. Do not scramble to restore the old order. Instead, be still, do nothing. Let the unraveling happen. Let it empty you. Let it clear the ground. Because only from that place, only from that deep, surrendered emptiness, can something true and lasting begin to grow. It is a strange thing how desperately people try to become themselves, as though the essence of who they are is something to be earned, something to be achieved after enough doing, performing, proving. But what if you were never meant to become yourself through effort? What if you were only meant to remember who you already are? Not by adding more, but by peeling away everything that isn't true. This is the quiet revelation that arises when you stop striving, when you stop chasing an identity and allow your true nature to rise, untouched and undistorted. You've been taught to build a self, to shape an image, to construct a version of you that is acceptable, impressive, efficient, lovable. And so you crafted this self from fragments, expectations, traumas, rules, reactions. You put it on like armor. You called it your personality, but personality is only the surface. The soul lives much deeper, and the soul does not need improvement, it only needs space. When you do nothing, not as a refusal of life, but as a conscious turning inward, you begin to feel what has always been beneath the noise. You begin to sense the subtle presence that was never born and will never die. The part of you that is untouched by what others think. The part of you that existed long before the world told you who to be. That presence cannot be reached through effort. It cannot be constructed. It can only be revealed. And it is revealed not through doing more, but through undoing. Through deep and radical stillness. The world is full of people who are performing themselves, speaking from borrowed scripts, feeling what they think they're supposed to feel, chasing dreams that are not truly their own. And yet, beneath all of this, something aches. A quiet, persistent sense that something is missing, not in the world, but in themselves. That ache is the call to authenticity, and it cannot be answered by adding more layers. It can only be answered by silence. You may think that doing nothing means wasting time, but perhaps time was never yours to manage. Perhaps the most sacred things unfold outside of time, outside of urgency, outside of effort. The self you're searching for does not exist in your plans. It waits patiently in your surrender, in the quiet moment after the breath, in the space between thoughts. That self does not shout. It waits to be remembered. You are not here to build a perfect version of yourself. You are here to return to the truth of who you've always been, before the world taught you shame, fear, and separation. That return is not a journey forward, it is a falling inward, and the path to it is cleared not by striving, but by stopping, by releasing the masks you wear to be loved, by letting fall the roles you play to be seen. When you do nothing, you begin to hear the voice that's been speaking all along, just beneath the surface. The one that doesn't try to convince you, but simply is. There is something within you that is whole, even in your brokenness, something that remains when everything else falls away. That is who you are. Not the roles you've been cast in, not the wounds you've carried, not the accomplishments you cling to. Who you are is not a concept. It is not an idea. It is a living truth, too vast for words and too quiet for noise. You will not find it in mirrors or applause. You will find it in the stillness that arises when you stop needing to be anything at all. It is a strange paradox, this doing nothing, because it asks you to unlearn everything you thought you knew about yourself. It asks you to drop your stories, your defenses, your ambitions. Not because they are bad, but because they are not ultimately you. And as these layers fall, what remains is not emptiness, but fullness. Not hollowness, but peace. Not confusion, but clarity. Because now, you are no longer creating yourself, you are simply being. And once you have touched this ground of being, once you have felt the truth of your own existence without adornment, then everything you do begins to flow differently. Your actions are no longer about proving. Your words no longer need to impress. You move from presence, not performance. You speak from essence, not identity. And in that, there is tremendous power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to simply exist in truth. What falls into place is not the life you imagined when you were clinging to control. What falls into place is your alignment with what has always been real. And from that place, the people who are meant to walk with you appear. The work that is meant to move through you flows. The path that is truly yours becomes clear. Not because you fought to find it, but because you finally stopped getting in the way. So do nothing. Let the noise settle. Let the masks drop. Let the stories unravel and watch what remains. Because in that stillness, you will remember what the world tried to make you forget. You are already whole. If something in this message stirred something in you, don't rush past it. Sit with it. Let it echo in the quiet. And when you're ready, share this with someone who needs the reminder that it's okay to stop running, to stop forcing, and to simply be. Let's inspire more people to reclaim their inner peace by doing less, not more. If this spoke to your soul, give it a like, subscribe for more insights like this, and join me on this journey inward. Because sometimes, the most powerful transformation begins when we finally do nothing. Thank you.